Okay, I'm thinking of returning my Mac Studio and I want to give you 3 reasons why. Now, the first thing I want to say is I've absolutely loved my time with this Mac Studio. I cannot actually fault the Mac Studio itself in the sense of that it is a great machine, and for loads of people out there it is absolutely superb. But it's just not for me, and I want to explain why, and why a lot of you guys out there, I don't want you to make the same mistake. So the first reason why I'm thinking of returning this Mac Studio is to do with its performance. Now, this Mac Studio is a complete and utter powerhouse, and it's absolutely incredible in like chucking videos at it, or doing editing of, let's say, photos, or even doing 3D rendering. I've done a bit on this in Blender. It's absolutely incredible. It can chew up anything you throw at it. It doesn't care. And to be honest, I've never even heard the fans even kick in on this machine, apart from when I did a benchmark to really test this out. And talk about benchmarks, have a look at the benchmarks that I have right here. So for CPU, I'm comparing those 20 CPU cores in the M1 Ultra to the likes of the M1 Pro, and the M1 Max will also have 10 cores inside them. I'm not comparing this to the binned M1 Pro machine, I'm comparing this to the 10 core versions, and the CPUs in the M1 Pro and the M1 Max are identical, not the GPU. We also have a MacBook Pro i7 from 2019 in the 15-inch model, and also the same again, the 2018 version of the CPU in an i7. And you're probably wondering why they're inside this chart, and it will come very clear very shortly. But looking at the chart, for single core for these Intel MacBook Pros, you can actually see there's a 14% difference in the Geekbench scoring here. So basically that 2019 machine has a 14% more powerful chipset inside it in just single core performance. But then when we jump up over to the brand new Apple Silicon with the M1 Max and the M1 Ultra, and to be honest the M1 Pro and also just the M1, their single core score is actually the same across the board. For the performance core and also the efficiency cores inside them, there's just more of them in each different machine, what you'll look at in a second for the multi-core score. But as you can see here, M1 gives you 65% more power than the likes of the most powerful last Intel i7 MacBook Pro. And as you can see, the difference between M1 Ultra and M1 Pro, M1 Max is only 1%. There's no difference at all really, you're not really going to tell. But looking at multi-core score, this is where things change quite a bit. Now, funny enough, those Intel MacBook Pros, there's only an 11% difference between both of them in multi-core performance. And I just want to say that again, there's only 11%. And for lots of you guys out there, if you'd bought yourself a 2018 MacBook Pro, there was absolutely no point updating to a 2019 model just to get yourself 10% more power. There's nothing really in it. But we've had Apple Silicon come along, and we have the likes of the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, and you can see there is a huge difference when this came along. We have got a 132% difference to the 2019 MacBook Pro i7. That is mind-boggling, super jump in speed. And if you're doing things like video editing, fiddling around with photos, fiddling around with 3D files, you're going to see a massive difference with M1 Pro and M1 Max compared to the likes of that Intel i7 with the MacBook Pro. Whereas though, if you had the older 2018 MacBook Pro and the 2019 MacBook Pro, when you edit videos and things like this, you're probably not going to see much difference at all. But there again, look at the M1 Ultra. The M1 Ultra is basically double of what we get with M1 Pro and M1 Max in multi-core. And to be honest, that makes complete sense, because basically M1 Ultra is 2 M1 Maxes stitched together, so it's giving basically double the performance. So no wonder it's 96% more powerful. Now, Geekbench scores are really good to look at, and they're really amazing with benchmarking, and you can see that there's massive differences for getting an M1 Ultra over an M1 Max. But when you're using, just say, your Mac for daily tasks, and even for me, I do videos almost every day, as you know from my channel if you are a person who watches my videos quite regularly. But is M1 Ultra a little bit overboard for my needs? Well, let me show you something here. I did a Final Cut Pro export of an 8-minute video on the likes of all 4 of these chipsets that I've been talking about. And from this chart, lower means better, as you can see. But starting with the 2 MacBook Pros right at the top of this chart, can you see the difference here? The first MacBook Pro managed to export this 4K video in 16 minutes 22 seconds. But then the 2019 machine managed to export the video in 15 minutes 56 seconds. We're talking about 26 seconds difference here. So you can see there's no point upgrading, or there was no point upgrading from a 2018 MacBook Pro to a 2019 MacBook Pro for the sake of 26 seconds. 26 seconds is absolutely nothing. And this is where I want to go now with the M1 Pro, M1 Max, and also the M1 Ultra. Again, looking at the chart here, the difference between just M1 Pro to that 2019 MacBook Pro with the i7 inside it, there is a huge difference in the export time. Remember, it took 15 minutes 56 seconds on the MacBook Pro with the i7, but with the M1 Pro it actually took 7 minutes 31 seconds, and that is basically half the time. That is a massive difference in exporting for getting the M1 Pro, and it's absolutely unbelievable. But then let's have a look at M1 Max. With M1 Max it does have an additional video decoder inside it, but the actual export on that only took 6 minutes 8 seconds, and to be honest, that's only around about 50 seconds faster. Again, 50 seconds? It's not really a lot in it. But having a look at the M1 Ultra again, let's compare that to the M1 Max. The M1 Ultra actually exported this video on my Mac Studio in 4 minutes 55 seconds. That's basically 1 minute 15 seconds quicker than the M1 Max. But the thing is, what you've got to remember is the M1 Max Mac Studio comes in at $2,000, but the M1 Ultra model starts at $4,000. For the sake of 1 minute 15 seconds to export a video, is the M1 Ultra truly worth it? In my opinion, personally, I don't really think it is. And this leads me nicely onto reason number 2 of why I want to send the Mac Studio back with an M1 Ultra inside it. For me, I have a MacBook Pro M1 Max with a 32-core GPU inside it. The M1 Ultra that you're seeing right here is actually the 64-core GPU option. And that's the point I'm trying to get at here. For the sake of that time difference, I can't really justify for 1 minute 15 seconds to actually pick an M1 Ultra and pay that much more money over this. It's so much overkill. For me, I save myself 1 minute 15 seconds every time I export a video, every other day or every day, but really, is that really truly worth paying that much more money for it? I don't really think it is. So again, maybe it was a mistake of mine. Maybe I shouldn't have got an M1 Ultra for my needs as a video creator. And like I said, I've even done things in Blender, and I've also do things in Photoshop as well, and do loads and loads of layers. And yet my MacBook Pro, what I've had with the M1 Max, has been chewing its way through this with no problems whatsoever. The fan, I don't think I've even heard it properly kick in since I did benchmarks test when I first got it. It can easily handle anything you throw at it. So again, M1 Ultra, I think it's a little bit overkill. So as you can see, that is the second reason why I'm considering returning my M1 Ultra Mac Studio. However, one thing I'm definitely not considering is changing the giveaway that I am doing on this channel right now. So right now, I'm doing a giveaway on this channel for this. This is an iPhone 13 Pro Max in silver white, and I'm going to be giving it away to one lucky subscriber when we get over 350,000 subscribers. And if you look at the subscriber count, it's not that far away at all. And all I want to know from you guys to be in a chance to get your hands on this iPhone 13 Pro Max is write down in the comments below of what Apple gear you're planning to buy in 2022, or what technology gear you want to get in 2022. Put it down into the comments below, and when we get over 350,000 subscribers, I'll be announcing who the winner is of this iPhone 13 Pro Max in a video. So if you are new here, make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss that notification for that video. With that said, there are a lot of scammers and spammers out there, some of them even impersonating me and telling you to WhatsApp them or Telegram them and told you you've won a giveaway. It is not me at all. Ignore these users completely or report them. Like I said, I'll be announcing the winner only when we get over 350,000 subscribers, and it will be done by a video on this channel. With that out of the way, let's go back to the video. So then, the final reason number 3, why I'm returning the Mac Studio or considering to return it, and that simply is my MacBook Pro with the M1 Max that I've got inside it. So half the time I actually dock my MacBook Pro, as you can see here, and then I use an external monitor, keyboard and mouse, and do a lot of my editing on a desk, and it's really, really useful to have this. And to be honest, that's another reason why I don't think I need a Mac Studio. My MacBook Pro its lid can just be closed, docked, and I can use it like a desktop. And in fact, that's another good reason why possibly to actually not get a Mac Studio and instead maybe even get yourself, say, a 14-inch MacBook Pro with an M1 Max inside it. It costs around about $900 more, as you can see here, to get yourself a 14-inch MacBook Pro with M1 Max inside it. And to be deadly honest, I think this is totally and utterly worth it, especially in the likes that, say, if you got yourself the Mac Studio and then you decide to get yourself the brand new display that's out there, yeah, it's going to cost yourself quite a bit of money. It's going to cost you $1,600 more, where you can actually get the display for just $900 more. Yep, it's 14-inch, but you can plug up another monitor of your choice. But yet you're still going to be getting that exact same performance of the likes of, say, an M1 Max, what you can get inside a Mac Studio right now. It's the identical chip. And as I've said already, I've never really heard my fans whir up in my M1 Max MacBook Pro by doing 3D rendering, video editing, and also doing Photoshop. It can chew its way easily through it. And I'm sure it will be able to chew through it for many, many years to come. So in conclusion, what can we take away from this video? Well, to be deadly honest, the Mac Studio is a great device, and M1 Ultra is super powerful. There's no denying that. But in the grand scheme of things, as I've shown in those sort of scoring there and using like Final Cut Pro and exporting, it's not really worth paying that extra money to have an M1 Ultra. And then on top of that as well, even the M1 Max entry level Mac Studio, it is really good, and it costs $2,000, but for the sake of $900 more, you could get yourself the likes of a 14-inch MacBook Pro with the identical chip what's inside this, and then hook up a monitor and keyboard and mouse and use it as a desktop, and also have it as a MacBook, as a laptop at the same time, which is really worth it. But there again, at the same time, I do understand why it exists, because so many people do not like to have a laptop. They love to work at a desk, love to have extra ports, but there again, you know, I could argue you could buy yourself hubs for the likes of, say, your MacBook Pro. So from my point of view, for my usage, I don't think I need this M1 Ultra Mac Studio anymore, and most likely I believe I'm going to return it back to Apple, and I'm going to stick with my MacBook Pro. Do you think I'm making the wrong decision? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, guys, it's time to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button, and also at the same time as well, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons, please also make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I will see you really soon. Bye bye.